Rick Rowe for Rural Investment Media and the Rural Classroom, sponsors of the 2025 Rural Natural Resources Investment Symposium, July 7 through 11 in Boca Raton, Florida, or via live stream from the comfort and convenience of your own home. A few things that you need to know about the conference. The first is that we're going to give you well over 50 hours of very detailed but very valuable programming over 4 short days. That's more programming than you could absorb over those 4 days. So the conference recordings will be available to you for a full year, and you're going to need them. As I say, we're going to give you more material than you can possibly absorb. A few other things that you need to know. The first is that every single exhibitor and every single sponsor at the conference will be interviewed by me before the conference so that you can familiarize yourself with the material and the opportunities available at the conference before the conference, allocating your time and financial resources at the conference more efficiently. Mercifully, none of my conference competitors seem to have gotten around to this. A couple other things that you need to know that set us apart from other folks. The first is that every public company exhibitor at our conference has been vetted by me personally. In the case of every single public company exhibitor at the conference, shares of that company are owned by and paid for the conference sponsor. Now, there's no guarantee, sadly, that because I own a stock, the stock goes up. There is a guarantee, however, that unlike any other conference on the planet, every single exhibitor has been vetted. At most conferences, the vetting process is simply an exhibitor check that cashes. We actually turn down more exhibitors than we accept. That allows us to make a spectacular guarantee to you, the attendee. If you attend our conference live or live stream and think for any reason that you didn't get your money's worth, I'll give you your money back. The financial risk is all mine, not yours. I'm delighted to say in 30 years of putting on the conference, we've had to refund less than 0.1% of the tuitions that we've charged. That notwithstanding, an absolute solid gold guarantee. Your satisfaction or your money back. So let's get started with the process. This morning, I introduce a friend of long standing, Ms. Tia Dechev, CEO of Mundoro Resources. To start with, Tia, tell us something about your success. Tell us about your expertise and why our listeners, frankly, should care about your answers to the questions that I'm going to ask you.
That is a great question. I guess people really want to make sure that they're getting information from people who have been doing it for a long time, like yourself in the investment business. I've been in this industry for a long time, and I've focused exclusively on exploration for the last 15 years. Before then, I was in investment banking and equity research. And what I've come to find with exploration is that it is truly a business, and you absolutely have to be very almost brutal in efficiency in terms of how you review assets. And I think that's a really big part of success. And then, of course, you have to be successful in terms of actually finding a deposit. But in terms of the generator model that we focus on, I've been doing this for pretty much the last 15 years with a really heavy focus on the senior companies the last 10 years. And so we've built a track record of focusing on really what our North Star is, copper porphyries, and specifically with major mining companies. So that's kind of in a nutshell, and I'm happy to kind of go into more detail for any particular point.
Well, Theo, as you know, and as some of the listeners will know, the prospect generator business model has been extremely good to me. It's been good to me for a couple of reasons. The first is that people that are attracted to the model in terms of managers seem to be unusually technically and financially sophisticated, which is useful. It's fun to hang out with sophisticated people. The second reason is that most of your exploration expenditures are funded by third parties, which means that you don't have to issue very many shares. But for me personally, the best part is knowing that my due diligence is being done by major multinational mining companies rather than by consultants. Rather than me paying them to do the due diligence, they write a check to the company. That's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful coalition of advantages. So tell us now something about Manduro. Tell us something about the generator. Tell us the market capitalization. Tell us the third-party expenditures. Tell us why we should participate in exploration through Mundoro.
Well, the number one reason is that so first of all, we focus on copper porphyries. So if you're curious about the copper market, this is, I think, an exceptionally well optimized platform in order to get involved. So you have obviously the option as an investor to get involved with the producers, the developers, and exploration companies. But fundamentally, when you get involved with Manduro, you're getting a very focused portfolio on copper porphyries because at the end of the day, if you're going to be in the copper business, you need to be in the porphyry business because that is fundamentally 70% of the marketplace. But also what it does with us is that you're not just participating in a junior company with targets that we generate on our own. We have an opportunity, or you have an opportunity, to participate in programs where the seniors are leaning in with whatever new tools and techniques they have available for the programs. So what I like to say is that you have a small company structure in terms of a capital structure with shares, but you have the powerhouse of a major company budget with all the expertise that brings in order to achieve a successful discovery. And so just to kind of give you an example of how that would work, if we spend $15 million on exploration, that is fundamentally 100% spent by our partners. So they spend all the capital. And if there is a successful discovery, now you've got a discovery that makes sense for a company like a BHP or a Japanese company, which is one of our partners as well, or a Vale, which has been a partner as well for Manduro in the past. And so now you have the opportunity for a major discovery, but in a small cap structure with all of the funding by that third party. So there's no dilution in the share structure. And that, I think, is really, really powerful. It's unique in the generator model. It's not easy to accomplish, but if you do it right with a lot of discipline and a very, very efficient team, it can be extremely powerful to make strong returns.
Tia, let's talk about the arithmetic a little bit. Tell us what your market cap is approximately. Tell us in Canadian or US dollars, but specify. Also, tell us historically, as best you can, how much third-party expenditure you've attracted, and tell us how much third-party expenditure you think that you'll get in the next 12 months.
That's an interesting question. And I did something recently because I had some meetings with the government in Eastern Europe. We've spent about $45 million in Eastern Europe over the last few years. And 100% of that has been funded by partners, which is fascinating. Our market cap is 20 million Canadian. So you are getting an extremely, again, it's a small cap that has ability to grow substantially based on any one drill hole that's going in the ground. And it has all been funded by partners. So just think about how much dilution you would have had to have suffered if you had to raise $45 million and still have to come up with a discovery. So again, I think the model is extremely effective. It allows shareholders to fundamentally experience really high risk opportunities, but at the same time with very, very limited downside because somebody else is funding those exploration expenditures. So that's to kind of give you the math around it. And in terms of just in terms of what we're going to be spending over the next 12 months, we are in the process of budgeting. Budgeting is a really fun time. And probably it's going to be between 5 to 10 million. We do have secured funds for the 5, but then there is contingency optional funding for success. So 5 to 10 million over the next 12 months. And again, all funded by partners, not coming in through the share structure.
And how much, by way of cash resources, what are the current assets of Manduro?
So right now our cash position is just over 2 million. But with our partner funding, it's probably going to be over 4 to 6 million, depending on where we are, because partners fundamentally put the cash in the company first, then that cash is spent on behalf of the partners in the programs. But that run rate, that even a $2 million cash position can last for a number of years. So some years we actually increase our cash position because we're net cash flow positive. Other years we'll use our cash position, but fundamentally, really what our focus is to have a net neutral cash burn at the end of the year so that whatever cash we do make, we're redeploying it back into more opportunities for more partnerships, which again, bring more opportunity for discovery.
Let's go a little deeper in that. I think the greatest sin of the junior mining industry is the relationship between general and administrative expense and total expenditure. You are a pre-revenue company if you define revenues as revenues from production. But the truth is that many years your general and administrative expense has been neutral after recovery. If you could talk about that efficiency, the fact that most and sometimes more than all of your general and administrative expenses is covered by third-party operating fees. I think that's a fascinating component of a 20 million Canadian market cap company.
Well, the first part of that is it's not easy, and there is no silver bullet. There is no like magical formula. You really have to spend the time to understand what is my portfolio, what is the maximum value that I can attribute to that portfolio from a third party. And fundamentally, if it doesn't make sense, you don't have the right portfolio. So again, if you're going to be in the generator business, your portfolio must generate an actual cash flow for you in order to run your model. Otherwise, frankly, you're an exploration company. So if you're going to be a generator, you need the right portfolio. The portfolio has to generate enough cash in order to cover all the administration in the company. And so there's a balancing act. If you don't have enough assets, you're not going to be able to generate enough. If your assets aren't of high quality, you're going to have to generate a lot of assets at small values and keep popping them out. So you have to figure out what is your portfolio, what's the right valuation for your portfolio, and can it cover all your administrative expenses, plus generate new opportunities? Because at the end of the day, it's meant to generate more and more growth in the company. And I think where a lot of companies probably struggle with that. And again, it's not easy. It's a difficult balancing act, but you can never spend more realistically than what you can earn. If you start doing that, you have exceptionally different performance criteria for your portfolio. So it's I think it's really just about understanding what's your value add, what is your portfolio, who are your customers, and then fundamentally how you make that work. And if something doesn't align, you've got to find it and you've got to adjust it. So I hope that explains it.
It does. Who your customers are, I think in your case is illuminating. Tell us historically who some of your customers have been. I think it's important that when investors think about the size of the prize, they think about the customer list. They think about the people who have valued your efforts. Tell us who those people are.
Well, our current customers, partners, are BHP and JOGMEC. JOGMEC is a division of the government in Japan where they go out and globally explore and fund early stage conceptual ideas and focused on base metals and really what strategically they're after. We've also had Vale as our partner. Vale, as you know, is based out of Brazil and has been kind of a conglomerate in the metals, primarily the base metal space. Before that was also Freeport. Freeport was with us in Serbia. They're obviously the number one copper producer and kind of butting heads with BHP on that kind of annual production profile. But fundamentally, every partner is a little different. We've also worked with First Quantum, again in Serbia. Which has been a very different perspective. And what's, I think, really valuable for us and our team is that we start to understand the mindset of each of these companies. On the outside, they all look like, big mining companies that produce XYZ metals. But the reality is they all fundamentally come at it a little bit differently. And once you work with them and you understand what they're looking for, you can actually create, ideally, more opportunities to fit their pipeline. And I think that's a huge advantage within Manduro because a lot of companies don't have that. They might have experience with one, but not as many that we've worked with.
Theo, to the extent that our investors and speculators are interested in learning more about Mundoro, and I urge them to be of that mindset, who specifically do they reach out to, and how exactly do they reach that person?
Okay. The best way to get a hold of us is to send us an email. And the easiest way to remember that is info@manduro.com. That goes directly to our investor relations manager. And then what he does is he triages those messages. So if someone has a very immediate question that's very detailed, and depending on what kind of detail they're looking for, we can triage that to directly an expiration manager within the team or to myself. But basically, you send that email in, we will respond within 24 hours, and we will triage it to figure out what is it that you're looking for, what kind of information, and who's the best person in order to respond to you.
And if an investor wants to talk to you, can they reference you in that email?
Absolutely. 100%. Just say, I want to talk to Tio.
Great. Theo, thank you. I've been a shareholder for quite some time, so thank you for your efforts on behalf of shareholders, but particularly this shareholder. And thank you, too, for your ongoing sponsorship and support of the Natural Resources Investment Symposium. I look forward to hosting you in Boca Raton.
Thank you very much for being a wonderful shareholder.